Now, Thailand is not cheap, and frankly speaking, it will never be cheap again. And as someone who's been living here for the past 5 years, Thailand's costs have been just going up exponentially. So in this video, I want to give you the reality of what it's like to actually spend your money here and how far it goes. And to further break this down, I'm not just going to talk about my cost of living, I'm going to give you 3 types of budgets between 3 different types of expats who live here in Thailand. Let's first start off with the budget traveler. The budget traveler's cost of living is going to be around $1,000 to $1,500 a month. The budget traveler is someone who values minimalism, peaceful environments, not needing to be in the main city center, someone who uses public transportation for the majority of the times, and only goes out occasionally. If they're eating meals or hanging out with friends, it's usually not going to be an international or Western or premium place. But they still do have the flexibility of having a social life. The first category of expense is going to be the housing. On average, they're going to spend around 15,000 baht for a pretty decent 1-bedroom or studio. They're not going to be living in the suburbs per se, but in Bangkok specifically, they're probably going to choose locations like Ratchathewi, Bai Kwang, Punawiti, Onut, Bang Na, Ramkhamhaeng, and the other neighborhoods that are a little bit farther away. However, they're still going to be able to enjoy modern conveniences like being next to a BTS station or using Grab every single day, ordering takeout food, buying things online, and even potentially staying at a condo that has a nice swimming pool, a nice gym. And their quality of life is still going to be a lot better than, for example, the Western equivalent of a $300 to $500 housing in America or in the West. It's going to be relatively comfortable. They're going to spend 1,000 to 2,000 baht on utilities and other bills. For food and groceries, they're typically going to be eating at local Thai food restaurants, spending on average $3 to $5 per meal, frequenting 7-Eleven very often, and occasionally going to nice premium sit-down restaurants and spending upwards of $10 to $20 per meal. But they're definitely not going to be balling out. They're definitely not going to be going to the nice international rooftops and restaurants and these Michelin star kind of high dining. Of course, they're not going to be doing any of that. They're going to be eating pretty decent, and they're also going to have a little bit of money to buy groceries. So food and groceries are going to be around 10 to 15,000 baht. That's anywhere between 300 to 500 baht every single day on food, which is pretty modest. And honestly, according to your lifestyle, that's going to be a very tight budget. It's very easy to spend 500 to 1,000 baht on a single meal here in Thailand, especially Bangkok, especially Phuket, as a lot of restaurants and a lot of meals are going to be 300 to 500 per meal. So having that budget per day it's going to be pretty tough unless you're frequenting, like I said, only local Thai restaurants or street food, or 7-Eleven meals, or buying bulk groceries and cooking at home. It is possible, however. Their transportation is going to be roughly 3,000 baht, and that's kind of on the higher end. It could be much lower as well. This transportation is mostly going to include using the public train, such as the BTS or the MRT, with rides ranging from around $1 to $2, and also heavily frequenting the motorbike taxis. And they're rarely going to be using the taxi cars, as taxi cars are going to be 2 to 3 to 4 times more expensive than the BTS or the taxi motorbikes. And if they're really about that lifestyle, they're going to be renting a motorbike for around 3,000 baht a month, which in my opinion is probably the most economical thing you can do. Me owning my own motorbike here in Bangkok has been an absolute game changer. My monthly bills for my motorbike is around like less than 1,000 a month. Filling up gas is only around $5 every 2 weeks. And then parking is another $5 to $10. So it's like honestly actually around like 500 baht a month. I spend 500 baht a month on my motorbike, which is absolutely insane. And then the last category for these budget travelers are going to be their social life, their leisure, their entertainment, their miscellaneous bills. That's going to be anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 baht. This will include going to local bars, drinking some beers with friends every now and then, and every now and then having a pretty nice meal with some friends. But it's definitely not going to be a very regular or often occasion. So all in all, that is what a rough $1,000 to $1,500 budget is going to look like. Keep in mind, $1,000 versus $1,500, that $500 difference is a pretty huge difference. $1,000 budget, it can mean you rarely ever going out, to a $1,500 budget to you going out very often. You know, it's a pretty big difference. Next up is the comfortable expat. This is someone who roughly spends $1,500 to $2,500 a month. This is someone who might be a mid-career professional, they work remotely or own their own business. They might not be earning any income but have a stockpile of savings, and might even be a retiree. I would say this is a very comfortable and very good target to aim for, to be this kind of middle category, because you're going to have the best of both worlds. This is someone who's not going to be penny pinching and not going to be extremely conservative or frugal with their money, but they're also not living extremely lavishly and popping bottles all night and going to the fanciest restaurants. So let's again break these different categories. They're going to be spending around 20 to 35,000 baht for a pretty decent condo. It could either be a very modern, luxurious, small 1-bedroom or studio. Their modern condo is going to have a beautiful luxury swimming pool, a very nice gym, and a bunch of other fancy amenities. However, their living space is probably going to be very small at around 40 square meters. Or conversely, they might live at a larger space of upwards of 100 square meters, but the drawback is the furnishings and the interiors are not going to be as modern. And speaking about housing, they're also going to be in a pretty good neighborhood. They're going to be able to walk to restaurants, to malls, to the BTS station. They're going to be able to hit up their friends at any time, meet with them in a 5 to 10 minute or 15-minute ride. They're going to have a pretty active lifestyle, as in they're probably going to be able to walk to different places, go to nearby malls or bars or restaurants, have things to do. They're going to be in the city center, and that's one of the biggest benefits of being in this budget range. They're going to enjoy modern conveniences, amenities, and overall live very comfortably. Next up are the bills. They're going to spend on average 2,000 to maybe 4,000 baht on bills. This is going to include bills like having 500 megabytes per second Wi-Fi speeds, having unlimited data plans, and using the air conditioning all day at their condo. Next are the food and grocery costs. This is going to range from around 20 to 30,000 Thai baht. They're going to have a pretty modest budget of around 1,000 baht a day, which is very doable if they're spending around 300 baht per meal, and every now and then going at a nice restaurant or drinking some wine or ordering a steak every now and then. But most of their meals are going to be pretty modest. They're going to be rice, meats, maybe a soup, maybe some vegetables, but it's not going to be fancy foods like seafood or a buffet or steaks all the time. It's going to be kind of leaning towards like comfort foods, and they might not eat at international Western restaurants as much, because Western restaurants, international foods, that's like 1,000 baht per meal. It can be quite expensive. So they're mostly going to be eating Thai food or, like I said, comfort food, and ordering a lot of Grab food delivery. Next up is the transportation. Now, it's not going to be a huge difference from the budget traveler. They might spend around 3,000 to 4,000 baht, and the only real difference is that they might use taxi cars more often. So between the budget traveler and the comfortable expat, their transportation is going to look almost similar. Next up are the lifestyle expenses. Now, this is going to be the main difference between that of a comfortable expat and that of a budget traveler. The comfortable expat has an active social life. They like to go to nice restaurants, nice rooftop bars, like to go to fancy events, like to be in the action and do a lot of things. Like, they like to live a very eventful life. Perhaps on Friday, they'll go to a nice rooftop bar, spend about 1,000 baht, and then go to the club afterwards. Or let's say if they're not into nightlife, they might frequently meet up with their friends and enjoy nice international restaurants. These lifestyle expenses might also include dating or having a significant other and paying for their meals, you know, going to nice dates, restaurants, doing nice things together, and even potentially having a gym membership, spending around $50 to $100 a month at a very premium gym. For example, Virgin Active or Fitness First, or maybe a lower tier one like Jets. But all in all, their lifestyle and their social life is very active, very comfortable. They have freedom to do what they want while not living super luxuriously. And the comfortable expat also has a budget for miscellaneous things like haircuts, like massages, other things like that. Let's just throw in another 3,000 baht right there. So all in all, this type of spender lives a very comfortable life, hence the name. They're essentially living their dream life. They had the vision of moving to Thailand, and they've made it come true. They're living, I keep saying this again, they're living very comfortable. They probably live a very well-balanced life, mixing work and responsibilities with leisure and activity and eventfulness, and not sacrificing convenience or modernity or comfort, but also not being a penny pincher. So in my opinion, this is the kind of stage and the kind of level you want to strive towards. And for my entire time having lived in Thailand, this is where I would categorize myself in. But as of right now, I'm kind of creeping towards the next category because my cost of living expenses are around $3,000 to $4,000 a month. So that brings me to the next type of spender, the quote-unquote high-value expat. I wouldn't consider them wealthy per se, but they're doing very, very well. They're either an entrepreneur, a business owner, they have assets, they actively invest, or they might be a retiree. They possess some sort of high income skill or work remotely at a pretty large company. Their monthly income is probably around $8,000 to $15,000 or more. And all in all, they don't really think about money, but they're not also living extremely luxurious either, because there are levels to this. You know, I know some people spending 800,000 baht on rent, living at places like Skop Thonglo or Mahanakon or these other extremely fancy hotels and condominiums. In other terms, they are upper middle class. For their housing, they're going to be spending around 40 to maybe 70,000 baht on rent. This could include living at a huge older style apartment, kind of like my last apartment that I was living at. I paid around 52,000 baht a month on rent on that. Or they might be living at a smaller, extremely modern, luxurious condo like Park Origin, or these other branded condos. For food and groceries, they're going to be spending a lot more at around 30 to 50,000 bahts, spending on average maybe 1,000 to 2,000 baht per meal. And overall, I'd say the main difference is that they're choosing nicer restaurants and more conscious of their food. Maybe they eat healthier food, or they eat just a lot more food. They order a lot more takeout food. Every now and then they might go to omakase or order a nice $60 steak, or have a special night out with their partner, spend maybe $100 to $200 on a meal. It's more so the lifestyle aspect. Next up is the transportation. Now, it's not going to be a huge difference. It's going to be around 3,000 to 5,000 baht. And as you'll see, the transportation costs stay relatively the same or fluctuate just a tiny bit between these three different types of travelers. Because it's unlikely you're traveling like 20 times a day, right? You're traveling probably maybe 3 to 5 times a day. So it stays pretty constant between every type of person. I wouldn't say this person is reckless with their money or they're overspending. They just like to live a very comfortable life. They're not trying to cheap out. They're not trying to think about money, and they're actively trying to buy convenience, buy service, buy emotions. You know, that's what they're seeking. They came to Thailand to live this high comfort lifestyle, but they're not trying to live recklessly. They're not trying to spend recklessly. They're not trying to live bougie or impress anybody. They're not buying a Porsche. They're not buying fancy jewelry or anything. They just like to live very comfortable. So these are the three types of spenders here in Thailand. Considering you're the average tourist wanting comfort, wanting to live a very nice lifestyle here in Thailand, majority of people are going to follow into these three different types of categories. Let me know if you agree or not in the comments below. As always, if you're interested in finding remote work and becoming a digital nomad, hit my free training down in the description and follow me on Instagram at I'm Paulie. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.